Super. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. And I know the start of the school year is an extremely busy, borderline overwhelming time. I'm going to try really hard to make sure that I keep things sequenced in a way that means it makes sense. But if you don't catch everything, that's absolutely fine. Chris will be sending out the recording. We also have tons of documentation. So if there's something that you're like, oh, that was interesting, but I didn't quite catch the whole thing, or I want to park that until further along, or until I'm doing more, I want to do more of X before I do more of Y or more of Z or whatever. That's obviously fine. Just we'll get you that documentation, no problem. So tonight we are getting started with Carousel, an introduction. So this is really I tell you what, actually, I won't introduce the actual thing yet. What I'll do is I want to do a quick introduction to me and Chris. So hello, I'm Adam. I'm a science teacher. I teach at a school in North London, and I use Carousel every day that I'm in school. I'm also the education director of Carousel, so I'm responsible for helping with like developing the product and making sure it does everything that teachers want it to do. And I do a lot of this kind of training and the CPD and things along those lines. Chris?
Hello, I'm Chris Connolly. I'm head of customer at Carousel. So myself and my team are your primary points of contact, either along your purchase journey in Carousel or after we've got you up and running. If you have any issues and you need any additional support, we're here to help.
Bro, thank you, Chris. So before we crack on, like I just want to stress how important webinars like this are to us. The traditional model of buying some kind of product involves you going buying product, and then your relationship with the company that provides the product is then done. So, for example, downstairs I have a very nice oven. It's Neff, by the way. I bought the oven, and if I ever have any interactions with the people from Neff, it's because there's something wrong with the oven. No one from Neff ever calls me up to check that I'm doing casseroles properly or that I'm setting it to the right temperature when doing a nice roasting joint and I'm not spoiling my meat. They don't do that. That's just the traditional model. That is absolutely categorically 100% not what we are about. You have bought Carousel. And whilst it is definitely the case that we'll provide you with customer support if you have a problem, something isn't working, we're much more like the thing that we enjoy more and the thing that we want to do more than that is to help you get better at using the product. So in your classroom on a day-to-day basis, most out of Carousel. And this webinar is, please don't think of this as, oh, I've done my Carousel training webinar, I'm done. We do absolutely tons of these throughout the year, and at different levels and with different kind of focuses. So please do make sure you keep an eye on your inbox so that you can get into all of those training sessions. Right, so before we start, I'm going to put a question on the board. It's not a particularly difficult question, but what we're going to do is we're going to use, for those of you who've been in a webinar before with me, we're going to use the chat blast, okay? The chat blast, the way it works is as follows. I'm going to ask a question, and listen carefully, you're going to write your answer. Do not press enter. Don't do it, okay? Don't press enter until I tell you to, okay? So I ask the question, you type your answer, and then when I tell you to, press enter, okay? Don't be the person that screws it up, okay? Because there's always one, sometimes two. Please don't be the person that screws it up. Me ask the question, I will name and shame you, okay? I already named and shamed Bill. Chris is the nice guy. I'm not the nice guy. So if you mess it up or whatever, you're going to get named and shamed, right? So there's your warning, okay? Question, answer, just type, don't press enter, right? Very quickly, I would just like your name and like your role. So it could be teacher of history or head of department, whatever, but put that in the box. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, punch it. Chris, we might be heading towards 100% success rate. Well, I can't see anything in my chat. Chris, can you see anything in your chat?
I think the issue is we're all going straight to Chris. I can't email. I can't do a chat with everyone.
See,
which has saved me, Adam, because I pressed enter early. You'd have rained shame on me.
You've named and shamed yourself. So now it's interesting because the reason why we do this first, when I ask your name or whatever, when I know your names because it's all written on the thing. Is because whenever we have a routine that we want to use, teachers, we practice it in a low stakes environment. So it doesn't matter if it goes wrong. So Chris is going to busily, in the background, figure out how to sort that out.
No, that was all intentional. That was just to keep the stakes low, Adam. Keep stuff
Got it.
very low.
Got it. We're going to try
Next
again.
time,
Right.
it's going to be public.
Okay, in your chat bar, where it says to Chris, there's a little arrow. You can change that to everyone. Don't press enter yet, Dom. Right? Don't press enter yet, but you should now be able to send it to everyone rather than just Chris. 4, 3, 2, 1, punch it. Ah, look at that. Okay, very good. Okay, we've got psychology, we've got history, politics, science, computing. Amazing. Okay, we've got the whole staff from Rotherham School. Brill. Okay, Carolyn is the Hod of Carolyn, apparently. Very good. Okay, lovely. Marvelous. All right, so we managed to tackle the first hurdle, which was somewhat put up by us. We've all got our names, we've got our Hod, we've got our roles, etc., etc. Right. Next question is a bit more important. What I want you to do is I just want you to read what it says on the board first. Okay. I'm going to give you some options about which like some choices, and I want to know which one best describes your carousel usage. Just put the number. Please, please, please don't feel the need to press enter until I tell you to. Okay. Just have a good read. I'll give you another 10 seconds or so. I want you to figure out which one most applies to you. Oh, Suzanne. Oh, Suzanne. 4, 3, 2, 1, and go for it. Okay, excellent. Cool. I'm just having a quick read. Okay, lovely. All right, great. So we've got like quite a range. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and pitch it to as many people as I possibly can. And what I'm basically going to do is I'm going to run through the way, I guess, that I use Carousel. And I'm going to blend the sort of nuts and bolts with the pedagogy. Okay, so I'm going to both show you how to use the platform in a technical sense, but also like pedagogically what I do with it inside the classroom. Okay. Now, if you have any questions at any point, please just whack them into the someone's put 6, incredible. Please feel free to just whack them into the chat bar. Even I'm not 6. Sorry, I'm just thinking about what we would put as 6. It's like you're turning it up to 11. We should have an option of 11. Sorry, I got distracted there. Anyway, yeah, if you've got any questions at any point, just whack it into the chat bar, and either Chris will answer it as we go, or Chris will save them and we'll answer them by the end. Okay, so you don't need to worry about any of that. Also, just so that you know, there will be a quiz from me at the end, so make sure you're listening. A little check for understanding. Okay, we'll get to that a bit later on. Right, so before we get started, what is this Carousel? Because some people are brand new to the platform, haven't used it yet. So Carousel, and I want to be very clear, is not a homework platform. Okay, Carousel does homework, but it is not a homework platform. Carousel is based on 3 distinct areas of both research and practice. Area number 1 is about memory and retrieval practice. We know that students forget things, we know that they forget things fast, and we know that retrieval practice, which is the act of being quizzed, slows that process. It strengthens the memory. Why? Not for this session. We're going to do another webinar all about the retrieval practice, what it is, the theory, etc., but that's not what we're doing now. All we know now is that asking students questions, it's called retrieval practice, it boosts their memory. We also know that there is plenty of research on homework, most famously, I guess, compiled by the Education Endowment Foundation. We know that it contributes to student outcomes. We also know that it's very difficult to get right. And in most places, homework standards aren't great and homework policies aren't executed. And finally, we know that teachers are somewhat struggling at the moment with workload. It's pretty bleak at the moment in terms of workload. A lot of people struggling with just like the general day-to-day, but also staffing and timetabling. And we've got kids going off into online learning at the moment and stuff like that. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to build Carousel around these 3 things. Okay, homework is just a part of it. And what Carousel becomes then is a basically the research from homework tells us that homework works best when it integrates with classwork. Okay, when it's not seen as something that's distinct from the classwork. So students by default will think of homework as something they do at home, is unrelated to anything else. They get it done, tick, 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 finished. What we're trying to do is we're trying to harmonize it with what happens in your classroom. And as such, Carousel is not a homework platform. It is an integrated online learning platform. Okay, it integrates, it makes the retrieval practice holistic throughout every aspect of your teaching. All of that in a bid to improve those student outcomes via the retrieval practice, but also to lower your workloads. We're not in the business of making anybody's life harder, so we are trying to increase your students' outcomes without increasing your workload. So all that being said, let's head off into Carousel. I've opened up my dashboard here. Now, for those of you who are brand new, if you're absolutely brand new, this will look a lot less full. It will look a lot more empty than mine does. Because this is a demo account, it's an active account, so there's a bit more than you'll see. If you have a platinum account, which is a whole department or whole school account, you'll see your classes over here. They'll pull through from Arbor or Sims or Bromcom or whatever. If you have an individual account, you'll need to upload your own classes. It takes about 30 seconds. It's not difficult. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to dive straight in with the pedagogy, okay? Let's say I'm a year 6 teacher. I'm about to start my geography lesson. Okay, so I'm teaching my students geography. And I'm segueing from an English lesson or maths or whatever, and I'm moving into a geography lesson. So I open up my whiteboard, which is over here, and I might call it Volcanoes Quiz. Now, I've been teaching students this unit called Land and Water, which deals with coasts and rivers and volcanoes and earthquakes and all of that stuff. What I want to do is I want to ask them a few questions to do with maybe rivers. And I'll just pick 3 like that. I don't want any pictures now. We'll just look at pictures later on. Let's go with this one. And I want 3 questions based on volcanoes as well, which is our current topic. And those ones, again, I'm just going to pick those at random. I'm going to get rid of the picture. I'm just going to go for that one. I go confirm. I want them in order. I want them to go rivers and then volcanoes. And that's now up on the board. So what I'll do is I'll make that a bit smaller so that my screen is really wide. So hopefully you can see what it would look like on a more normal screen. There. Okay, so there's my quiz right there, ready for the students to do. I segue straight across. Now, if your students are coming in from break or from lunch, or they're moving between lessons like they would in the secondary school, this is a beautiful way to settle your class, to get them into the learning, but it is also straight off the bat, very, very powerful retrieval practice. And I've got 3 questions here about rivers, and I've got 3 questions here about volcanoes. So these 3 questions might tell me information about how they're doing over time, whereas these questions might tell me about how well they're, ready and prepared for today's lesson. I can customize that however I like. I can pick whichever questions I want. Bing, bang, bosh, they're there. It's a beautiful way to start a lesson. Now, I hear you asking, but Adam, where do you get these questions from? They're so lovely. They're so nice. Where did you get them from? I'm glad you asked. Let me show you. Over here, I'm going to direct your attention to this area, which is called My Question Banks. Okay, this here is the absolute beating heart of Carousel. This is the nexus. It's the most important area in the whole dashboard, in the whole of Carousel. Because what Carousel does is it takes things that you want students to know and it puts those things in students' heads. So it takes what you want them to know and it puts it in their heads. It can't do that unless you tell it what you want the students to know. So if you tell Carousel what you want students to know, we can help get that into students' heads. But we cannot do that until you tell Carousel what you want them to know. And the way we do that is via questions and answers in what we call a question bank. So when I go and have a look at this land and water question bank, I can have a look through it and I can see that I've got all of these lovely questions. I've got some pictures over here with oceans. It's a bit small. There are labels pointing to different bits. I've got questions about rivers. I've got a nice little question about a coast over here with labeling, etc., etc. Very nice. Okay, this is the stuff that I want my students to know by the end of it. How do I get these questions into Carousel? I have 3 options. I'm going to move through fast. Option number 1, write them yourself in Excel. You just get a spreadsheet, question, answer, topic. You have 1 column so that you can number them. So I guess number them, question, answer, topic, done. Advantage, this means that you've taken your curriculum, you've conceptualized it as a series of questions and answers, and it's your curriculum. They're your definitions in the order that you want. There is a disadvantage here, of course, which is time, right? You might not have time to sit around and write question banks for absolutely everything that you teach. So you have another option as well. And your other option is to head off into the community. And in the community, we store question banks that you can take. There are two sources of question banks in the community. Source one is teachers just from around the world for whatever subject who have written their question banks and just are willing to share them of their own free will, of their own volition. So, for example, when I head off into the community, I saw there was a psychology teacher in here. I search psychology and I can see Mr. Kendrick has written a question bank on AQA. I can see that Mrs. Allen over here, Miss Meisel. I used to work with Miss Meisel. That's how I know that it's a miss. We've got, absolutely tons of them, loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of them. Okay, there's just, whatever you want. Here, look at this. Yeah, 844 questions from Dr. Hobbits. I know Dr. Hobbits, he's the boss. Yeah, so Dr. Hobbits knows his psychology. If I want, I can just add that, and that's now mine. I take that into my dashboard, and we've got these for whatever subject you might like. That's source number one. Source number two is what we call our premium question banks, which are these green ones. So a premium question bank is one either that we have written ourselves at Carousel, or it's one that we've worked with a content partner on. So, for example, John Catt Education, who you might have heard of, they're a really important educational publisher. They have produced quizzes and question banks for use in Carousel. You might have, if you're a primary teacher, you might have heard of the primary knowledge curriculum. All of their content is available within Carousel. We've also written ones ourselves for AQA GCSE Geography, AQA English Literature, the whole of the primary national curriculum for science and geography and history. There's tons of stuff there, and if it's green, it means we stand by it. Okay, it means it's been quality assured, and it's there and ready for you to use. Now, what the advantages of using one from the community? It's quick, right? It's very, very fast. Yeah, you don't have to spend all of this time making your own question bank, but you may be worried, right? And you may think, well, hang on, maybe these definitions aren't exactly what I like, or maybe they're in a slightly different order. I want to resequence, or I want to delete this, or I want to add that. That's fine as well, okay? Because what we can do is you can make an editable copy. So any one of these, what I can do is, let's say, for this Key Stage 2 science, I click here, and I can go make an editable copy. And what that will do is when I go to my dashboard, I'm really cluttering my dashboard now, I can see it over here. I've got a editable copy here, you see here, and it's now private. And I can go in and I can edit that. So I can say, right, well, I like most of these questions, but I want to change this, I want to change that, I want to change the other. And the real magic here, especially if you have a platinum account, is you can't share that back into the community, right? You can't take work that Dr. Hobbits has done, make a couple of edits, and then share it back into the community as if you made it. But what you can do is share it within your school. So if I have a platinum account, so a department or a whole school or whatever, I can take someone else's question bank, I can make a couple of edits here or there, and I can share it within my school or even my Met. And that means that people within my immediate circle can use the fruits of that labor. So we have the advantage of saving quite a lot of time, but also the fact that I can tailor it to my curriculum. Okay, and that will then again end up over here, and this will form the basis of all the questioning you ever do. So part of the questioning you might do might be via a whiteboard quiz. So you've got your question bank ready, you could do a whiteboard quiz, no problem. Your bread and butter probably is setting quizzes for students to do at home, which is a very simple, very easy process. You start by clicking over here, create new. And let's say I want my students to do a volcanoes quiz. I pick a date. Now the date is just for organizational purposes. Yeah, it doesn't stop it after the date or whatever. It's for your benefit to help you keep organized. And I put the 18th. I pick that land and water question bank. I pick my topic, and I'm just going to go with volcanoes. And I pick a number of questions, let's say 10. And I can pick them at random, or I can choose individual ones. No problem. Now, in fact, this question bank is multiple choice enabled. So when I go back into it, you can see that actually for every question here, there are options. Okay, it's a multiple choice question. Not every question bank is like this. And if you want to build a question bank like this, it's very easy. It just takes a bit more time. You have to add an extra 3 columns for wrong answers. This question bank is multiple choice enabled. So if I want, I can set it as a multiple choice quiz. Or I can set it as a free recall quiz, which is what I'm actually going to show you in a second. I've got some revision modes as well that govern how the students basically prepare for the quiz. When the students log in, the first thing they'll see is flashcards. I'll show you this in a second, is flashcards. And then after that, they'll see a quiz. And I can govern how many flashcards they see before they do the quiz. I'm not going to go into detail on that now, just for time purposes. But what you've got is there's a little, anytime you see one of these little eyes, that will give you information about what it does. Okay, so you can change your practice based on that. I've got some advanced options as well. I can give students additional attempts on the quiz, so they could do it once or they could do it 100 times. I can change the entire language to Welsh as well. We have a lot of users, so you can change the entire interface into Welsh. The questions are by default shuffled. It's better for their memory that way. It's also a good anti-cheating mechanism. No one can text their mate and be like, what was the answer to question 6? If everyone's question 6 is different. And that's by default. So by default, they're shuffled. Text to speech means that we can read them out as well, which is great. And then there's this option as well, which I'm not going to deal with now because it's it's a little bit niche. Okay. So what did I do? I forgot to set the actual flipping quiz. That was daft. I quit. Silly as in. Okay, so it was volcanoes, wasn't it? I hope you're all paying attention, yeah, because I warned you I'm going to do a check for understanding later. Be on your toes, eh? Yeah, nobody wants to be the person that gets it wrong. Anyway, where was I? Right, now when I press assign, what I see is a list of my classes. These are the classes that I teach. So I can set it for this class, or I can set it for that class and this class, or whoever. I can also set it to other classes in my school. If I have a platinum account, department or whole school, I can set it for multiple classes, whoever I like. A lot of our heads of department have found this is particularly useful because it means you can set one quiz centrally for everyone. And so yeah, you can decide exactly how you want to do that. I'm not actually going to assign this quiz because I don't want it in my dashboard. But when you do assign it, it will just appear over here like this. Okay, so these are 2 quizzes, Blue Peter style, that I've set earlier, and they're just sat right there. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what it looks like from a student perspective. So first I'm going to unlock this. So ignore why I had to unlock that. I'll explain it later. Now this is the volcanoes quiz. I can see 11 of my students have already done it. So I can see that these guys have done it, and I can see that Tera Saneg has not done this quiz. So what I'm going to do is, as a teacher, I'm just going to send this quiz out to my students. Very straightforward process. I click on these 3 dots. These are called, this is cool, you'll like this. They're called meatballs. So I'm going to click on my meatballs, and I'm going to go create link. And I just send that to my students. So if I use Satchel 1 or Google Classroom or Teams or whatever, I just send them the link and they click on the link. So I'm going to open an incognito window. And the student clicks on the link, and this is what they see. Now, in terms of them logging in, there's 2 options. The default is they just use their name. Tera, what is it, Saneg, like that. And that's the default, no password, nothing like that. If you are a Microsoft Azure school, and so normally if you're using Microsoft Teams, you can use single sign-on. So they can just click in the same way they would click for anything that they use Microsoft for, okay? But you just have to enable that. The default is they just put their name in, but there's no password. If a student ever comes to you and says, oh, sir, I'm sorry, I couldn't do the homework because I forgot my password, they're lying, okay? Because there aren't any passwords, yeah? It's just their name. I have had a couple of students try this on me. I go, oh, did you forget your name? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, you didn't log on at all, did you? They're like, no, I couldn't. I didn't have my password. No, sorry. Just to be clear, you didn't open it at all, did you? Yeah, no, so I didn't. Right. So none of that. Okay. It doesn't happen because they just put their name in. Log in. And this is what they see. 2 options. Revise. I'm just going to plug that a little bit, make life easier. I've got revise and I've got take quiz. Revise takes me to my flashcards, which look like this. Isn't that nice? Very clean, very clear, very straightforward. The flashcards are to prepare students to take a test, okay? And we've designed them in a way that is in accordance with the research on retrieval practice. And in fact, over the next, Chris, how long? Month, maybe? Within a month?
Yeah, I would say 4 to 6 weeks-ish.
Okay, so hopefully before Christmas, these flashcards are going to get a bit of a makeover and they'll be a bit more responsive. So students will be able to tell the system which flashcards they know really well, and it will move them out, and they'll be able to tell the system which ones they don't know so well, and it will bring those back within another few, whatever. For the minute, all they're doing is they're just going through them. They've got some nice pictures. Very good, etc., etc. Now, you need to teach students and train them how to use these flashcards. By default, a student is going to open up their phone or their tablet or a laptop or whatever and just go like this. Yeah, done. Like that. Or they'll go, yeah, know that, know that, know that, know that, know that, know that, know that. So what you definitely want to do is train students how to use flashcards by speaking them out, by doing them with a friend, by writing answers, by doing it with a parent or whoever else is at home, around the kitchen table, whatever it is, you need to train them how to do it, because otherwise they'll just do that process and they won't learn anything. And we strongly, strongly, strongly advise, before you set your first homework, you dedicate an entire lesson to teaching students how to use Carousel and how to use those flashcards. Right, if you've got a set of tablets or laptops or you've got a computer room, whatever, it is worth its weight in gold to do one lesson just where you are teaching them how to access and how to use those flashcards. Go around the room. If a kid says, yeah, I'm ready, and says, I'm going to start the quiz now, pause them, ask them some questions from the flashcards. If they get them right, brilliant, go do the quiz. If they're not getting them right, I'm sorry. Yeah, the whole point of this is that you learn from the flashcards, right? And we don't know enough yet, okay? Let me sit here, let me help you, speak them out, write them down. I like to give students a mini whiteboard so they can write their answers as they go, but it feels temporary. It means that they're not, they're not worried about getting anything wrong. It's very low stakes. Okay, they're worth its weight in gold to do something like that. Okay, once they are ready, it's time for them to take a quiz. And they click here. Take a quiz. What is a volcanic eruption? I don't know. Should have paid more attention on the flashcards. 2 characteristics of stratovolcanoes. I do know this one. Deep sides layers, I think. Which arrow points to lava? Yeah, that's going to be P. What is magma? Molten rock in the mantle. Okay. I've written all my answers. There's only 4 questions in this quiz. Very nice. I've written all my answers. I'm now ready to mark my quiz. Now, this is very, very important. When it comes to marking the quiz, there are 3 stakeholders. There are 3 people involved in marking. Person number 1 is the computer itself. If an answer is obviously right, the computer marks it as right. If an answer is obviously wrong, the computer marks it as wrong. Anything in the middle, the computer will not mark. And the reason for that is because, and trust me, I've tried this, even in a post-ChatGPT world, there is no computer smart enough that it can really identify all of the possible nuances and variations and permutations of what students could write. I've tried it. I've sat there for hours with ChatGPT with real student answers, trying to see if it's capable of telling which ones are right and which ones are wrong. And for many it can, but it's not good enough at doing that. So the student has the chance at that point to self-assess their work, which is extremely, extremely powerful. This is not just a concession to the fact that the computer is not smart enough. This is a good thing in and of itself. The student is going to sit there, is going to look at what the right answer was, is going to look at what they wrote and judge if they got it right or if they got it wrong. It's extraordinarily powerful. It's one of the foundational principles of assessment for learning, is the ability of a student to reflect on their own work. And it looks a bit like this. I go to my quiz. What I wrote, I don't know. Now, the computer knows that that's obviously wrong. Yeah, there's no world in which that is the correct answer. Wrong. End of story. Computer says, sorry, your answer is not correct. Too bad. Now, when I look at this one, I can see my answer and I can see the correct answer. And it's now for me to judge, right, based on what the correct answer is, am I right or am I wrong? Am I right? Am I wrong? In this case, I might say, yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's okay. When I look at this one, the answer is obviously right. This is word for word. In this case, letter for letter. Done. So the computer just says, yep, good job. There's no judgment needed. There's no moderation. There's no marking. It's just right, 100%. And when I go to my next one, look at that. Word for word. Happy days. I got it word for word. So the computer knows this is obviously right. It says, yeah, you're in the clear. So if it's obviously right, it gets marked. If it's obviously wrong, it gets marked. Anything in between, student moderates. Because that's very, very important for their own learning and ability to self-reflect. Despite it being important, and despite us, loving our students and trusting them to an extent, we also don't trust them all the way, which is why I said there were 3 people. Person number 1 is the computer, person number 2 is the student, person number 3, of course, is the teacher. And I'll get to what that looks like in a second. So I've now marked all of my questions. I go summary and I can see everything here and I can see the ones I got right, the ones I got wrong, etc. I press submit and I'm now done. Okay, I'm finished. I can go back to my flashcards. I can see my results. I can do a retake if I want. But fundamentally, I'm done. Now, my students know that if they fall below 80% in any given quiz, they're expected to do it again. So they have to go back to the flashcards and do a retake. Okay, so in this case, I think it was 75%. It was only a 1 in like 4 questions or whatever. In principle, a student is now finished. Okay, so I'm going to close off and I'm going to go and play Fortnite or eat dinner or whatever it is that children do these days. When I come back to my dashboard as a teacher, I click over here and it'll update. And I can now see that Tara has done the quiz right there. Okay, very quick and easy way to see who's done your quizzes and who hasn't. I can see some people squinting at their screen, so I'm going to pull that in a little bit. Okay. Now, I said to you that we love students and we want them to self-assess their work, but we also don't 100% trust them. Okay, not necessarily because we think they're going to lie or be devious, but also because they don't have the same knowledge and ability to discern what is correct and what is incorrect as we do. Which is why you also can mark the quiz yourself. Now, when it comes to when we use the word mark, really it's more like a moderation. It's looking at what the students have done and deciding if you're happy with their choices. We've designed it in a way that means it does not take you long at all. Now I begin my marking and I can have a look and I can see all of the answers that my students have written. I see the question, I see the correct answer, again, headline for each question, and I can see all of their responses. Now, the reason why we did it like this, question by question as opposed to student by student, is because it makes it easier to mark. It's super easy to look at that and see where your issues are. You can make it even quicker. There's a little toggle over here that will remove anything that was automatically marked. So when I tick that, it gets rid of everything that the computer marked for me. So all I'm seeing now are the things that I need to look at. Do I need to write anything? Do I need to type anything? No. All I need to do if I see something that I want to change is click here. And I just look straight down and I say, right, I've got molten rock underground. You know what, to tell you the truth, Chico, I'm happy with that. I think that's fine. Molten rock's in the mantle, that's fine. Underground again, yeah, I'm okay with that as an answer. Now, when I look at these two, I start to see some issues. So Abby over here has said that it's outside the volcano. Now, to cast your minds back to geography and your study of volcanoes, we know that magma is under the ground and lava is above the ground. So there is a classic misconception over here. So you know what? I want to talk about that as a class. I'm going to put a little tick over here. Danny has got it right, but there's an issue with the spelling here. So I'm going to put another tick. I go through the remaining questions. And again, all of these were correct and the computer marked them automatically. Same over here. Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, well, that sticks out, doesn't it? Faduma has been Googling. Faduma's been Googling. Now, how I deal with that, separate question, but it's super easy to identify. And actually, we're working on a document we've been working on a document right now that I'm going to send out as soon as it's done. And what I did is I Googled answers, right? So what I did is I took a whole load of questions that students had actually answered. Then I Googled the same questions, and then I put the same questions through various artificial intelligence engines. And it is so obvious. It is so obvious when a student has copied or ChatGPT'd their answer. Why? First thing, length. They're always way, way, way longer. Second thing, no spelling mistakes. Third thing, capital letters, right? Students basically don't use capital letters when they're typing answers at home in their homework, unless you've whipped them very, very well. But broadly, it's very easy. It's very easy to spot. So I'm going to change that to incorrect. And I'm going to have a very strong conversation with Faduma. I go next, and now I'm done. I've checked them all. Fine. What options do I have now? Well, one thing I could do is analyze the results. I'm not going to show this to you now, but basically it's just it's a big table that shows their results in this particular quiz, which questions they did well on, which ones less well, etc., etc. But what I really want to do is move to this function, feedback, because feedback is my favorite function in the whole of Carousel. Feedback is the way that Carousel works with the teacher to bring the homework into the classwork. I said right at the beginning, the whole point of Carousel is to take homework and classwork and mush them together. This is what I'm about to do. I'm about to take the work that my students have done at home and project that into my classroom. So I click the feedback button. First thing I see is an average score. Now, if I see this average score of 70%, my class are getting an absolute blasting. Okay, now again, it depends on where you're up to with your class. I wouldn't suggest doing this at the start when you're first setting quizzes, but when your students are in good habits, if I've said to students, I'm expecting 80% or higher, I'm not okay with 70%. And the whole class is going to get a blasting. Now, it could be there are individual students within there that I need to have a private conversation with, fine. But in principle, we're working on this as a class. I also want to point out the fact that we've got some students in the room who've got 100%. Yeah, and I use set piece standard speeches where I talk about the fact that, guys, yeah, like I know I've said to you 80%, but 80% is the minimum. There are plenty of students in here who are getting 100%, right? And there's no one in here who's not capable of getting 100%. So once I've said 80%, that's the minimum. Okay, and I'll be so proud of anyone who says, oh, I got 80%, but actually, you know what? I'm not happy. I'm going to keep going until I get 100%. Now that brings up the few questions that had the lowest scores. In this case, it will probably bring all of them. No, it's only got 3 out of 4. It'll bring the questions that had the lowest scores. Now, I like to use this in class as my starter the day it's due. So if the homework is due on the Tuesday, this is on the board as the students come in on the Tuesday. And the reason why I do that is because I like to triangulate. It's my way of figuring out if students have actually learnt from the homework. And again, if students get it wrong, I explain to them. I say, guys, I just don't understand. Yeah. The point of the homework is not to have done the homework. The point of the homework is to have learnt from the homework, to know more things. If you get something wrong at home and then come to class and get it wrong again, like I just don't understand. I don't understand how it could be. If it were me, I would be sat at my computer and I would not leave until I knew that thing, because I know that Sir is going to test me on it tomorrow. Please, guys, make me proud. Don't step away from that computer until you know that the things that you didn't know before you now know. It's totally okay to get things wrong once. But if you get it wrong twice, 3 times, what you're telling me is that you don't care. So I use scripts like that, whatever, it's your class, right? You guys know how to deal with your class, but it's worth having those like having those conversations out in the open and explicitly. But underneath that is this bit here, what I found interesting. So do you remember I ticked those 2 answers? Those come up over here, anonymous. Those come up over here. Now, whereas this, my students will probably do in the back of their exercise book or on a mini whiteboard. This one I like to do verbally. Okay, so I like to have verbal questioning here. Because what I want to do is I want to really dig underneath these answers. Now, when I first started using Carousel, I used to ask questions like, why is this wrong? And I'd get a sea of hands and they'd all give me the right answer. What I do now is slightly different. I don't say like, why is this wrong? I say, why did the student think this was right? Or what is it about this answer that I find interesting? Or what 2 things has the student confused over here? So if I put this one here and I say, what's wrong with this? I'll get a sea of hands and students will say, oh, because it's inside the volcano. What I really want to do is get at the difference between magma and lava. So I'll say, what 2 things has this student confused together? And that gets me much better thinking than just asking for what the correct answer is. And then over here, I'll say again, what is it about this answer that I find interesting? And I'll see a sea of hands and students will say, oh, the problem is the spelling. I say, absolutely correct. Mini whiteboards, I want everyone to spell this word correctly. 1, 2, 3, show. Lovely. And that's my way of knowing that students get it, students know and have learned from the experience. Okay, so I've now done my quiz. What I can do is, so my students are quizzing, I'm doing my whiteboard quizzing, I'm doing all of that stuff. I can look at how they're doing over the long term as well. So if you have a platinum account, if you have silver or gold, you cannot do this. But if you have a platinum account, so department or whole school, what you can do is you can look at scores over time. So if I take geography for that class, who is it? These guys. I can see all of their quizzes over time and how well they're doing. And I can download that into Excel, which is really cool because you can download that into Excel and then compare it with other sources of information like end of unit or end of year assessments. But again, I can do that for year groups, whoever. Or I can look at that at a higher level. So I can, here, this bit scores is really for looking at a particular class. How is one class doing over time? But what I can do is I can go another level up and look at how a whole year group is doing over time, or how a particular subject is going over time, or I can look at individual teachers, right? How many quizzes is each? Look at that, I'm bossing it here, yeah? I've set 50 questions, whereas Lizardo's only set 6. Completion rate, we won't talk about that. That means that students have only really completed 30% of my quizzes, but details. In principle, you can look at, whole departments, individual teachers, year groups. You can show that by student as well. So you can see all of Adam's students over here and how many quizzes they've done, what their completion rates are. And again, you can download that into Excel, no problem. This is stupendously powerful if you're in middle or senior leadership and you want a helicopter view, right? Which classes, which subjects are making the most out of the system. I've also got study packs over here, which is basically how I can take all of those flashcards and send them home to the students. So instead of me making the quizzes, so let's say this is especially good for in the run-up to an exam. So I'm about to do my, November mock or whatever. I might take my entire flashcard database on paper 1 chemistry, send that to my students, and they can make their own quizzes. Brilliant. But there is one other thing that I want to show you, and I've saved it till last because I think it's absolutely fantastic. When I set the whiteboard quiz 26 or 7 minutes ago, I picked the questions at random. I went into the whiteboard. Let's just go with the volcanoes one again. And I picked, say, 6 questions, and I picked them at random. Okay, very quick, very easy, superb. But we can do better than this. Random is very good at the start when students are first learning a particular question bank. But as time goes on, we can be smarter. Because maybe I don't want to pick questions at random. Maybe I want to pick a question that I know students have found difficult. Or maybe I want to pick a question that they haven't seen in a long time. Or maybe I want to pick a question they might have seen recently, but they've only seen once. I've got 10 questions, and I know they've seen 9 of them 6 or 7 times. I want to pick the one that they haven't seen that often. Now, obviously, as teachers, this is what we want to do. The problem is no one can keep track of all of that information. You've got hundreds of questions, you've got hundreds of students, dozens of classes. No one can keep track of that information. Fortunately for you, the computer can. And as long as my students have been quizzing, as long as they've been doing those homework quizzes, in the background, Carousel has been collecting information and data about what they've been doing. It's been collecting data about what they're good at. It's been collecting data about what they're not good at. It's been collecting data about how many times they've answered a particular question. And it's been collecting data about the last time they asked a particular question. And it takes all of that and it turns it into this magnificent thing called a C-score. So I open up my question bank, and here, I didn't show you this before, I can select the class, and that's Year 6, Dem 2. And these guys have been doing questions from this question bank. So first I'm just going to uncheck everything so I can demo it properly. I select Year 6, Dem 2, and I now see these orange bars. What do these orange bars do? Well, they tell me all of those things that I mentioned to you just before. So when I hover over a high one, you can read it. So this is a really high bar. It's a high C-score, 12. It only goes up to 15. Why is it so high? Because I've only asked this question to students once. And the last time was 10 weeks ago, which is a long time. And the last time they did it, they did really badly. So it gives it a very high score. Whereas I can compare it to, say, this one, which is quite low. I've asked it 3 points, 3 times, so it gets 1 point. It was still a long time ago, 4 points. But when they did do it, they got 100%. Now, as a teacher, that is gold for me to know. I absolutely categorically want to know this. Why? Because then I can set a quiz based on, say, really difficult ones, and I can see the average C-score going up, or I can put an easier one and bring that C-score down. I can sort them top to bottom, and I can say, right, well, I just want this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. And when you've got even bigger question banks, I've got, in my GCSE chemistry question bank, I've got 600 questions. And across the course of the year, I'm gathering loads of information. So what I do is I just whack a filter on this, and I say, no, I only want to see questions that have a score of 10 to 15. And I just want to pick from those. It's incredibly powerful, because what it's doing is it's giving you the information you need to make a good decision about what's most likely to result in learning for your class. And again, I can just confirm that, show now, done. And it takes 20 seconds. So what have I shown you overall? I've shown you that we use retrieval practice. That's the flashcards, that's the quizzing, that's the whiteboard, that's the feedback, that's the student self-assessment. All of that is about promoting student learning. In terms of the homework, yes, it's a homework. It gives the students the homework to do, but it integrates that with the classwork via the whiteboard, via the feedback, via the C-scores and every piece of analysis that you ever do. And also, we're not killing your workload here. To set a quiz takes me about 45 seconds, thereabouts. To set a whiteboard quiz takes me about 30 seconds. The C-scores means that there's a whole bunch of work that you don't need to do anymore. The marking, it takes no time at all. So I do, my students generally, within a couple of weeks of term starting, my students will be doing, my Year 7s will be doing 1 or 2 quizzes of 15 questions a week, right? How long does it take me to mark? 4 minutes? maybe max 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes. Does not take long at all. So we're trying to push that burden down, 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 down. We're trying to do a lot for you. You know, all of that community stuff with the question bank is there. It's designed to make sure that we are minimizing your workload. Okay, so get ready for the quiz. Right, open up your chat box. I warned you. I warned you. Yeah, don't get these wrong. I warned you. Okay, we're going to do it really, really straightforward. Okay, they're just myth or fact. Okay, so you're going to type your answer. Don't press enter until I tell you. Okay, so I'm going to put a statement on the board and you're going to tell me if it's a myth or if it's a fact. Statement number 1. Myth or fact? 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Oh, Nick. 6, 5, 4. No, Laura. 3, 2, 1. Go. Top work. Almost all of us getting that right. It is a myth. Carousel does homework, but it is not a homework platform. It is an integrated online learning platform designed to mesh homework with classwork. Okay, so most of us getting that right. Okay, top dollar. Next up, get yourselves ready. Okay, I'm just going to put a little line there so I know there's a cutoff. Great. Here we go. Don't press enter yet. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Hey, top work. You want to know? Myth. Very good. Yes, this is a myth. You can write your question banks yourself, but if you want to write question banks yourself, just know that it will take time. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing to do, but it's something that takes time. If you don't have the time to write them yourself, you can just go into the community and get from others. Okay, next up. Myth or fact? Get ready. Ooh, this is a good one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Oh, interesting. Okay, most of us writing myth. Okay, now in fact, this is a myth. Okay, you don't have to give feedback on any quiz. It's up to you as a teacher. Me personally, I give feedback on, let's say my students have done 2 quizzes. Okay, I might only give feedback on 1 quiz. You don't want to overload students. What I tend to do, this is a little trick here, yeah? So let's say there's a 20-question quiz. I will mark until I've got 2 or 3 pieces of really great feedback, and then I'll just stop marking, okay? Because I'm busy. I'm like you guys, I'm a teacher. I don't have time to mark every question. I'd love to, but I don't have time. So what I do is I get to a point where I've got enough feedback. I don't tell the students that I only mark the first 5 or 6 questions or whatever, or that I stop after 10 questions, or I stop once I've got good feedback. But the problem is that you could mark 20 questions and have 50 pieces of feedback. That doesn't actually help anybody. You need to narrow it to the things that are most important. So you need to save time and narrow it to the things that are most important. Nice little trick for you guys now. Okay, I think I've got one more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and punch it. Yes, absolutely. That is a myth. I mean, be my guest. If you want to set up a complicated mark sheet where you're keeping track of everything, yeah, go for it. But you really do not have to do that because the computer does it for you. That's what C-scores are there for. That is exactly what they do. Have I got one more? Oh, I've got one more. Okay, get ready. Oh. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and go. Yes, this is indeed a fact. Okay, even if you don't have MIS integration, someone well, I guess it depends on who you are in particular. So if you don't have MIS integration, someone still needs to enter it, and it won't be every teacher in the school. It will just be one person. But yes, this is actually a fact. Okay, if you've got Platinum account, department, or whole school, all of those classes will come through automatically from somebody, either straight from the MIS or from your data manager. I think that's it from me. So I'm going to pause on the any questions because I just want to pass over to Chris. Chris, do you want to just tell me every time you want me to turn over a slide?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. So just as you said at the start, we have a wide variety of people here who are at different stages of using Carousel. So I just want to prompt you as to what you might want to consider your next step to be. And then we'll circle back, I think, to the questions I've been answering. I think everything that's been put into the chat as we go along. So we just hold a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes at the end for any that might be outstanding. But first of all, if you are a Carousel Silver user, that is to say you have registered and you're using the free usage tier of Carousel. First of all, if you haven't registered yet, do it. But we're assuming that if you're here, you already have registered. You can get a free 30-day trial of Carousel Gold. Carousel Gold is our tier designed for use by individual teachers. There is a drop-down menu. If you click on it, click Try Gold. That will activate your 30-day free trial. We don't take any details. It just goes straight in and it gets you up and running on Carousel Gold. If you jump over to option 2, Adam, if you've already used up your free trial of Carousel Gold, or you've had a look and you decided that yes, definitely you want to do, you have 6 and a bit more days to take advantage of our sale that we have on. Carousel Gold normally costs £60 for 12 months. That's reduced at the moment to just £48. You can use this code back to school 23. If you're either paying by card or requesting an invoice, please put it where it requests a PO number, and the discount will be reflected on your invoice. If you're already a Gold user and you've liked what you've seen of Platinum, if we jump forward, Adam, just a reminder that you can get a quote for your school on the product page. Our pricing is on a sliding scale per teacher. It gets cheaper the more teachers you include. So you need to know how many numbers, teacher numbers you need, whether you want MIS integration. So you can go to the website, get a bespoke quote, book a demo. I will show you around the platform in a little bit more detail, answer any other questions you have. And if you want to place an order, please use that email address there. I'll be sending out all these bits of information in a PDF along with a recording of today's session at the end. So don't worry about those URLs and addresses. If you jump forward again, Adam, just to say we have a fantastic guide that Adam has written to retrieval practice called Retrieving Better. There is a new version of this coming quite soon that we're quite excited about, but nevertheless, if you are a Platinum user and Adam has given you some food for thought that you want to take away and you want to implement in your classroom, we really do recommend you take the time to read Retrieving Better. You hopefully should have received a copy already, but I will also send out a copy of that with the post-webinar email. And finally, I will also be sending out a copy of this new document we produced recently. It's just a one-pager to give to parents, but it's been received very well. That helps you help parents help their students in how they do their retrieval practice. Adam, back to you. I can't hear you, Adam.
Okay, so before I just ask before I take any more questions that might have come up, I'm going to ask you one more question to finish with, okay? It's very important, like I said, that you realize that this is not a one-off. We have lots of webinars coming up, and that reflects the fact that you will get better at Carousel over time. Your students will get better over time. Do not expect to be the absolute perfect boss user as of tomorrow. You have to expect to get better over time. You have to work at it. You have to practice. And part of what we're trying to do is guide you and support you through that. So the one thing I'm going to ask you before I take questions, it's what is the one thing that you want to do the most as a result of what you've heard tonight? So it could be setting whiteboard quizzes, it could be using C-scores, it could be giving feedback, whatever it is, what is the one thing you want to use or do the most? Okay. Hey, Tom, too quick. Okay. Right. I'm going to give you guys about 10 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Seeing a lot of love for C-scores in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, that's really good. That's really great. That's really useful. Okay, there's a couple of you mentioning about talking about two things I just want to really quickly pick up on. So one is about consistency and policy around setting homeworks. Please, I beg of you, read Retrieving Better. There's a whole section at the back which is about how to build a homework policy and how to make it such that everyone is on board and can set the homeworks and that you increase students take up across the department or entire school. There was also something someone mentioned, I think it was Jonathan and maybe one other, about convincing other colleagues. If you have a department or whole school account, you've got a Platinum account and you want help with that, please, yeah, if you go onto the Carousel website, maybe Chris, just send this in the email thing, you can book on a chat with me, and I can help you through that process, and I can give you a few ideas to talk you through how to roll it out across the department and work with multiple members of staff. Because what you don't want is for one person to be doing it and everybody else to just be like either ignorant or ignoring what's going on. So if you want to talk about how to roll that out, then please just we can have a chat, or you can drop me an email, no problem. Cool. In which case it is 4:59, which means we are a minute early. Chris and I are going to hang on at the end in case there are any more questions. In the meantime, thank you guys so much for coming along. If you have any feedback for us, anything that you want to see Carousel do, please just let us know. And in the meantime, happy quizzing. It's my new catchphrase. I like it.